I'm your host Aakash Beri, and in the studio we have with us Dr. Zakir Naik. Dr. Zakir Naik has been given the exclusion order by the Home Secretary of the UK government to prevent him from entering UK. Dr. Zakir Naik, the eminent speaker from Mumbai, India, is respected world over for his enlightening and convincing efforts of promoting similarities between major faiths based on converging values for a common platform of peace that exists between the religious scriptures, including the Bible, Vedas, Torah, and the glorious Quran. As a student of comparative religion, Dr. Zakir Naik has worked tirelessly for the common good amongst people of all faiths, engaging in constructive debate and dialogue. These discussions have been hugely successful and have resulted in much progress towards a better understanding of Islam, as well as enhanced harmony between people of different beliefs, dispelling fears and misunderstandings. Dr. Zakir Naik is undoubtedly an opponent of terrorism and as such has often spoken out against all acts of violence and violent extremism. He has emphatically condemned the killing of civilians and is one of the world's regular noted orators on this topic. We have with us in the studio Dr. Zakir Naik, and we would like to know from him what are his views regarding the exclusion order. Welcome, sir.
It's my pleasure to be with you.
Sir, you were supposed to visit UK for a lecture tour. So can you give us in detail, tell us in detail about this lecture tour, and also was it your first visit to UK as a part of the lecture tour?
Alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalam ala Rasulillah wa ala alihi sahbihi ajmain, amma ba'd. I've been traveling to UK for the past 15 years, and I've been to UK more than 10 times, and I've given lectures in several cities of UK. I've given several lectures in London, in Birmingham, in Bradford, in Manchester, in Glasgow, in Cardiff, and many other cities of UK. So this was not supposed to be my first lecture tour to UK. And this particular trip, it was supposed to have 3 lectures of mine. The first one was supposed to be held in Sheffield Arena in Sheffield on the 25th of June. That's on Friday evening. The second was supposed to be held in the prestigious Wembley Arena in London on the 26th of June, that's a Saturday. And the last was supposed to be held in the National Exhibition Centre, that is the LG Arena in Birmingham, on the 27th of June, that's Sunday evening. So these 3 lectures are supposed to be held. And the topic of my first lecture in Sheffield Arena was supposed to be Understanding Islam and Peace. And the second lecture in Wembley Arena, the topic was Universal Brotherhood. And the third lecture in Birmingham NEC, it was supposed to be Freedom of Expression and Islamic Perspective.
Sir, could you also tell us what is the background of this exclusion order which has been served to you by the British government?
It actually initially started, there was an article that came more than 2 weeks back on 30th of May 2010 in a newspaper by the name of Sunday Times. And the title of that article was Muslim Preacher of Hate Let into Britain. And the same article quoted many of my speeches out of context. They misquoted me and tried to prove that I am a person who promotes terrorism. And later on, immediately the next day, the same article was reproduced and rehashed by 4 or 5 different newspapers of UK, including Daily Star, Daily Express, Sheffield Telegraph, and some other newspaper. Okay. And because of this was one of the reasons that put pressure on this new conservative government. Okay. To prevent me from entering. And the article said that how has this new government permitted me to enter UK to give a series of lectures, and they tried to portray that I'm a person who promotes terrorism and violence.
Okay. So when were you officially informed about this exclusion order?
The first time that I was officially told about this exclusion order from the Home Secretary was 2 days back, on the 17th of June. And this order was passed on 16th of June. And I received a phone call early in the morning, day for yesterday, that is the 17th of June, from the British High Commission, telling me that I got a letter from the Home Secretary of UK, and she has excluded your entry into UK.
And so, what do you think are the possible reasons for this exclusion order being given to you, which prevents you from entering UK?
I feel that because today Islam is the fastest growing religion in the world, it is the fastest growing religion in the Western countries, including UK. I feel this may be one of the major reasons that the new UK government does not want Islam to spread in UK. And they know very well that amongst all the Muslim speakers, the speaker that gets the maximum audience throughout the world, wherever he travels, it is Dr. Zakir Naik. So I feel that I was made a scapegoat.
Okay.
And because there was a pressure on this new government, I think it was a political decision. It was not a legal decision. They know very well, the Home Office knows very well that I'm a person who normally is against terrorism. I'm a person who speaks against violence. I think it was a pressure on the new government because they used to always oppose the previous government that why do they allow Muslim speakers to come in. So now because of this article that came in the newspaper and there was political pressure, they were forced. And what they did, that they quoted me out of context and they killed two birds with one stone. First, they prevented the true message of Islam to spread in UK and they don't want Islam to spread. And secondly, because of misquoting me, they try to prove that I'm a person who promotes terrorism so that they can prove to the world that this government is against terrorism. So I think it was a political decision.
So according to the few press releases, the UK Home Secretary has prevented you from entering UK because of the following statements like every Muslim should be a terrorist and the statement supporting Osama bin Laden, and also Western women make themselves more susceptible to rape by wearing revealing clothes. So what are your comments on them?
As far as the three statements you have mentioned, only two were mentioned out of the four that they gave reasons in the letter which excluded me. The first one is absolutely out of context. As far as the second statement is concerned, of me supporting Osama bin Laden, it is again out of context and it is manipulated. And the third statement wasn't mentioned in the letter which they told me.
Okay. So according to you, which are the statements which actually the UK Home Secretary found objectionable? And could you also clarify each one of them?
Well, I feel that what she has given in the media is different than the letter what was presented to me. What was presented to media is just one statement. And the official exclusion order which I received from the Home Secretary by hand delivery, I'll read it to you, it's verbatim. The Home Secretary has considered whether, in light of this approach, you should be excluded from the UK. After careful consideration, on 16th June 2010, she personally directed that you should be excluded from the UK on the grounds that your presence here would not be conducive to the public good. The Home Secretary notes that you have made the following statements amongst others. And she has pointed out 4 statements from my lectures which she finds as objectionable. And inshallah, I'll give reply to each one of them. The first statement that she found objectionable, it's in quote, as far as terrorist is concerned, this is my quotation, what she has given. As far as terrorist is concerned, I tell the Muslims that every Muslim should be a terrorist. What is the meaning of the word terrorist? Terrorist by definition means a person who terrorizes. When a robber sees a policeman, he's terrified. So for a robber, the policeman is a terrorist. So in this context, every Muslim should be a terrorist to the robber. Every Muslim should be a terrorist to each and every antisocial element. I'm aware that terrorist more commonly is used for a person who terrorizes an innocent person. In this context, no Muslim should even terrorize a single innocent human being. The Muslim should selectively terrorize the antisocial elements. And many times, 2 different labels are given to the same activity of the same individual. Before any person gives any label to any individual, for any of his actions, we have to first analyze for what reason is he doing that. Now, reading in context, I don't have to give any clarification that I'm not promoting terrorism. I'm saying very clearly that no Muslim should ever kill any innocent human being. What she does, she picks up a statement of mine out of context and says, Dr. Zakir Naik says, every Muslim should be a terrorist. It's absolutely out of context. Okay. Because I give in the context and she knows the context. But to the press, she is only mentioning one of my statements. But in my letter, she gives the context. The reason I feel is that if she gives the full context in the press, it will be obvious that I'm not promoting terrorism. But she knows that I'm going to challenge this exclusion order in the High Court of UK. That's the reason in my letter, she has mentioned the full thing, so she can say that she's not quoting out of context. So if she really was truthful, she should have given the full paragraph what she has written in my letter to the press. Because the paragraph clearly states that terrorist means a person who terrorizes. And in this context, when a robber sees a policeman, he's terrified. So for the robber, the policeman is a terrorist. So in this context, every Muslim should be a terrorist. Whenever a robber sees a Muslim, he should be terrified. whenever robber sees any antisocial element, he should be terrified. And I further go on to clarify that I know more commonly the word terrorist is used for a person who terrorizes an innocent human being. In this context, no Muslim should ever terrorize any innocent human being. I'm very clear. I have to tell the press that she has excluded me from entering UK because I said that no Muslim should even terrorize a single innocent human being. I go to the press and say that she has banned me, she has excluded me from UK because she objected on my one sentence that I said no Muslim should even terrorize a single innocent human being. So what I feel, it's out of context. And there may be people who will say that why do you use such language? See, this is English language. And if you hear my original lecture, it was talking about an article that came in Times of India in 2003, talking about a very famous inspector by the name of Inspector Angre. And the article says that Inspector Angre terrorizes the underworld. So in this context, I have said that this word terrorist means a person who terrorizes. So in this context, I said that whenever a robber sees a policeman, he is terrified. So in context, it is very clear. I am telling the Muslims that you should see to it that the antisocial element gets scared of the Muslim. At the same time, no Muslim should ever terrorize any innocent human being. It's absolutely clear. So I don't see any reason that why should this statement be objectionable to the UK government. And the second statement that she feels is objectionable, that she quotes, and she says, and she quotes me, that beware of Muslims saying Osama bin Laden is right or wrong. I reject them. We don't know. But if you ask my view, if given the truth, if he's fighting the enemies of Islam, I'm for him. I don't know what he's doing. I'm not in touch with him. I don't know him personally. I read the newspaper. If he's terrorizing the terrorist, if he's terrorizing America, the terrorist, the biggest terrorist, he's following Islam. In bracket, source, YouTube, 2006. When I read this statement which had come earlier in the UK press, I immediately went to the YouTube and I saw, and I realized that this lecture of mine was not given in 2006, it was given in 1996. So imagine they are attributing this lecture to 2006, and any normal person, you don't have to be an intelligent CID or belong to Scotland Yard, to see that you can easily see that I am looking 15 years younger. And there you can see my physique and you can see my face. They can easily judge that it's an old video. And this was given in Singapore. And I've never been to Singapore in 2006. This lecture of mine was a lecture given in Singapore in 1996. And it was shot by the local organizers. And later on, some prejudiced group, what they did, they manipulated and they cut paste my lecture and they presented on the YouTube. Now, how can a clipping of YouTube presented by an unknown person without any proof can act as evidence against me? What I say, this clip is manipulated, and irrespective whether it's manipulated or not, this statement of mine that they're shown on YouTube was not given in 2006. It was given in 1996, which was 5 years before 9/11 attack. So how can they attribute this statement? And if you read in context, if this has been mentioned 5 years before, in no way can you attribute this statement to 9/11. And that is the explanation I gave in the press release, that this was manipulated. And this can never be as an evidence, because you cannot take a clipping from YouTube which shows cuts in between. So I feel that this is novice on the part of the UK government to take a clipping from YouTube and then attributing it to 2006 and then saying that I said this and I'm supporting Osama bin Laden. There are many journalists and many people in question and answer session, they ask me, what are my views regarding Osama bin Laden? And I always say that I don't know. I cannot base my views on what BBC and CNN say, because the Quran clearly mentions in Surah Hujurat, chapter number 49, verse number 6, that whenever you get information, you check it up before you pass it on to the third person. I cannot base my views on BBC or CNN, otherwise I'll have to say that he's a terrorist. So therefore, when anyone asks me the question, what are your views regarding Osama bin Laden, I say, I don't know. He's neither my friend, Is he my enemy? I neither consider him as a terrorist, neither do I consider him like a saint. I'm neutral. I said, I don't know. Just because I say I don't know, that does not mean that I'm a supporter of bin Laden. Just because I say I don't know, they can attribute that I'm promoting terrorism. It's totally unacceptable. And I would like to ask a simple question to the Home Secretary of UK. That suppose, hypothetically, the UK government arrests bin Laden today. And suppose he's going to have a trial after a few days in the UK High Court. Before the trial takes place, if a journalist or if the Home Secretary, Theresa May, herself asks the judge who's going to take the trial of Osama bin Laden, what are your views about Osama bin Laden? Is he responsible for 9/11? Is he a terrorist? What will be the reply of that judge? What will he say? But naturally he'll say that let the trial take place. And only after evidence is posed and he verifies the evidence can he say, even though he may be the judge of the High Court or the judge of Supreme Court, in any country, he will give his verdict only after the trial is over. So similarly, because I have a large following, there are hundreds of millions of people who watch my program on different satellite channels, I have to be careful. Just because I say I don't know, and that will be the same statement given by the Supreme Court judge or by the High Court judge, I don't know. So that time, will the Home Secretary exclude the High Court judge or the Supreme Court judge from UK? So in the same way, I being a responsible citizen, I being a responsible person, I have not verified all the claims. And I'm not the judge. If any court arrests him and convicts him after proof, then there are chances. No one has arrested him. These are only evidences given. Now those who have the evidence and they are convinced, if they blame him, they have a right. I'm not objecting why are they blaming them. But why should I? So I, as a good Muslim who has not verified these claims, have not done research on it, the best reply a Muslim should give is, I don't know. Now, those who have proved, those who are calling, it's different. Similarly, when the High Court judge is asked, he as an intelligent person will say, I don't know, unless he undergoes the trial and verifies the evidences and has a cross-examination, then he can say for sure whether he is innocent or is responsible, whether he is a terrorist or whether he is a saint.
इबादत का हकदार, कायनात का मुख्तार, बंदों का परवरदिगार, हो हर काम उसकी रजा की खातिर।
देखिए मेरे साथ
मौलाना फजैलुर रहमान कासमी से जानिए, वही अव्वल वही आखिर। अगला प्रोग्राम पीस टीवी उर्दू पर।
Her third statement that she feels was objectionable, that she quotes me saying that how can you ever justify killing innocent people? But in the same breath, as condemning those responsible, we must also condemn those responsible for the deaths of thousands of innocent people in Iraq, Afghanistan and Lebanon. In bracket, as reported by the Manchester Evening News, 21st August 2006, as part of a speech you gave, that means I gave, at the Expo Islamia conference in Manchester. Immediately I went to the net and I typed and I went on to the Manchester Evening News, 21st August 2006, and I was shocked. Immediately before this statement, I said that I condemn the attack that took place in 9/11, took place on 7/7, 11/7, the Twin Towers, the London bombing, the serial bomb blast in Bombay. But I said you should not put a full stop here. And the report says that. But in the same breath, I even condemn, then I said this, we must also condemn those responsible for the deaths of thousands of innocent people in Iraq, Afghanistan and Lebanon, whether in context or not. So why is she quoting part of it? Even if I agree, I only made this statement that we must condemn those responsible for the deaths of thousands of innocent people in Iraq, Afghanistan, Lebanon. Does the UK government does not want me to condemn the innocent people killed in Afghanistan, innocent people killed in Iraq, innocent people killed in Lebanon? She says it is the privilege for a person to enter UK and she has the right to prevent anyone, and I do agree with her. That means if any innocent life is saved in UK, if he's a British national, it's a privilege. And if an innocent UK citizen is killed, then the killer should be condemned. But if thousands of innocent lives are being taken in Afghanistan, in Iraq, in Lebanon, and if I'm condemning the killers, she's objecting. So does it mean that the UK government wants that the innocent people in Afghanistan should be killed? The innocent people in Iraq should be killed? The innocent people in Lebanon should be killed? I don't understand what is objectionable in this statement. Do you find anything objectionable that we must also condemn those responsible for the deaths of thousands of innocent people in Iraq, Afghanistan, and Lebanon? I don't really find what is objectionable. I am 100% condemning any innocent human being killed, whether it be in UK, whether it be in America, whether India, Lebanon, Iraq, Afghanistan, whether it be Muslim, whether it be non-Muslim. The fourth statement that she quoted of mine, which she found objectionable, and I'm quoting, strongest in enmity towards the Muslims are the Jews and the pagans. It, in bracket the Quran, does not say that the Muslims should fight the Jews. The Jews, by nature as a whole, will be against Muslims. There are many Jews who are good to Muslims. But as a whole, the Quran tells us, as a whole, they will be our staunchest enemy. Peace TV, recorded on YouTube. Now, this statement is of mine. And this was in context to a quotation I gave of the Quran, of Surah Ma'idah, chapter number 5, verse number 82, which does say that strongest in enmity towards the believers are the pagans and the Jews. And the closest to the believers are those who say that we are Christians. So in this context, but I further went on to clarify that the Quran does not say that Muslims should fight the Jews. And I further said, there are many Jews who are good to Muslims. But as a whole, the Quran tells us that the Jews will be the staunchest enemy. So this is a verse of the Quran. But I'm going out of the way to say that does not mean that the Muslims should fight the Jew. It does not mean that 100% all the Jews will be against Muslims. So what is wrong in this statement? This is a verse of the Quran. We as Muslims, we believe this is a word of God. And you can see around the world that as a whole, you can see around in the world, whether it be in Israel, whether it be other parts of the world, and the Quran is right in making that statement, that as a whole, the Jews will be against the Muslims. So I want to know that these four statements of mine, what is objectionable? It is absolutely condemning violence and condemning terrorism in unequivocal terms. But what I feel that this was more of a political decision, and the government knows very well, and the world knows that I have given several lectures against terrorism, against violence, and I've quoted the Quran many times. That Quran says in Surah Ma'idah, chapter number 5, verse number 32, that if anyone kills any other human being, whether it be Muslim or non-Muslim, unless it be for murder or for spreading corruption in the land, it is as though he has killed the whole of humanity. And if any person saves any human being, it is as though he has saved the whole of humanity. So in unequivocal terms, I have condemned terrorism several times, and I have been the chief speaker in many of the peace conferences. And I have been called by several heads of states, not only of Muslim governments, even non-Muslim governments. I've met many heads of states. So does the UK government want to tell that all these heads of states and all these intelligence, they are calling a person who promotes terrorism, they're calling a person who promotes violence? Is the UK government giving a message to the world that all the heads of states that meet me regularly, that they are fools? So what message is the UK government giving to the world? And I have traveled to several countries of the world, Muslims and non-Muslims, and I've met many government officials. They call me, they invite me, we have a lunch, we have a dinner, we have a tea. So does the UK government want to give a message that all the other governments are fools and only their intelligence is correct?
So, sir, after all this has happened to you, what's your further plan of action, immediate plan of action?
Our immediate plan of action is that we are going to challenge the exclusion order of the Home Office, done by the Home Secretary, in the UK High Court. We will file a judicial revision. What I believe, I have more faith in the judicial system rather than the politicians. I have more faith in the judicial system of India I also have faith in the judiciary system of UK rather than the politicians. And inshallah, hopefully, in the next few days, in the next week, we have hired a team, a battery of very good solicitors and a battery of lawyers, as well as QCs, known as Queen Counsels. And very shortly, within the next few days, within the next couple of days, we'll be filing a revision, a judiciary revision. And we'll take the matter to the High Court and we'll challenge the exclusion order of the UK government. And inshallah, this order would be reversed.
Sir, you must have received, I'm sure, hundreds of phone calls and emails from the fans throughout the world. So any message for them particularly? All your fans?
Yes, you're right that I've received hundreds of phone calls in the past couple of days and thousands of emails from my fans and from different parts of the world. And many of them said that they're sad, they're angry, they want to protest. So I said, even if you want to protest, please see to it that the protest is peaceful. Don't make it violent, otherwise it will spoil the name of Islam. There are many doctors, scholars, lawyers, politicians from different parts of the world, they phoned me. And they wrote emails, and they said, what can we do? And they are very angry. And if you go and have a look at the website where these articles have come, mostly in the UK press, there is always on the website, there is a comment page where you can give your comments. So most of the comments, more than 95%, all of them are saying that what the UK government has done, they totally disagree with it. Because these people have seen me on the television. They said, how could they blame a person who's been speaking against terrorism, who's been speaking against violence for so many years unequivocally? So surely, if the government really goes and reads the comments of all these thousands of people, and what we feel that if there is a protest, it should be peaceful, it should not be violent, and we should express our anger in a peaceful way.
That's a great thought, sir. So you believe that this whole exclusion order is a political decision. So any message particularly you would like to give to the UK politicians?
Yes, I do think it's a political decision. I may be wrong, I'm a human being, but that's my opinion. So what my message to the politicians of UK, whether they're Muslims or non-Muslims, this is the time of test. Whether do they support the truth or do they support a political decision? So if he is a politician in UK, whether Muslim or non-Muslim, whether belonging to a ruling party or the opposition party, the truth is very evident. It is a test for them that do they support the truth or do they support the political decision so that they secure their seat.
Okay. And sir, what about the other politicians, like politicians of India and the rest of the world? What would you like to tell them in particularly?
My message to them, and I did receive many calls from politicians from India and from other parts of the world, and they said that we will get together and we will give our letter to the UK government saying that what they have done is totally wrong. And the many Indian politicians who phoned me, but naturally, as far as the Indian politicians are concerned, that they should write a letter or a protest against the UK government, knowing that they have called an Indian who has always been speaking against terrorism, against violence, unequivocally. And I also happen to be in the list of the 100 most influential or powerful people in India. They ranked me last year 82 and this year 89 in the list. And last year I was third on the top 10 spiritual gurus, and this year I was on top. So maligning an Indian who speaks against violence and against terrorism, to say that is promoting terrorism, it is an insult for the Indian government. So surely I believe that very shortly the Indian government should write a letter of protest that what they have done is wrong, and they should write a protest that they should reverse the decision of the exclusion of mine to UK.
That's a very thoughtful thought. And sir, thank you so much for your time. That was my last question of the evening. And that was Dr. Zakir Naik. And he's pretty much answered all the questions put in front of him. And it's just a waiting game. We wish him all the best. And that's all from the studio. This is Aakash Beri signing off. Thank you so much.